Yes, it is recording now. So in a way, this gathering for myself is serves somewhat as a support group. So I first of all thank you all for being here, and I hope that this meeting will be as meaningful and helpful to you as I think it will be for me. A few months ago, we lost Rav Adin Steinsaltz. And at the time, Rabbi Sacks wrote about him. He was unique, and we are now an orphan generation. And these were the first words that went through my mind on Motzei Shabbat after the initial shock had left me with the devastating news of the passing of Rabbi Sacks. He was unique, and we are now an orphan generation. We lost a few rabbis in the past few months. I mentioned Rav Steinsaltz. We lost Rav Rabinovitz, Rabbi Sacks's Rav Muvhak, Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg, and others. But there is something unique about the passing of Rabbi Sacks. First of all, the way he had passed away. It was so sudden, so unexpected. And the shock definitely enhances the sense of loss and devastation. He was still in his prime. And here he's not with us. But it's not only the way he had passed away, but the person himself. He was unique, different, other, in a class of his own. Serving as a rabbi for almost 8 years in the UK, it is quite clear to me that Rabbi Sacks was in many ways a product of British Jewry. You know, many times others look down on British Jewry. Well, it doesn't necessarily produce Gedolei Torah in the traditional sense of the word. It's not known for its great Torah scholarship. But I think Rabbi Sacks is a proof that British Jewry has a lot to give the Jewish world and the larger world, because Rabbi Sacks was a gift not only to the Jewish world, but he went much beyond. Rabbi Sacks was a figure in many ways greater than life. And I think what allowed him to be greater than life was two things. One, aseh tov, and one, sur meira. What I mean to say is he never narrowed himself to a confined ideology. The fact that he grew up in Britain allowed him not to identify with a particular stream within Orthodoxy. I remember, because I think it's something unique about British Jewry. It's a bit behind traditional Jewry. The boundaries between modern Orthodox and other streams of Orthodoxy are a bit blurry. It's definitely within the rabbinate. It's not so clear who's what. I remember in an interview where the interviewer was trying to press him, and Rabbi Sacks strongly refused to identify himself as modern Orthodox. He said, why would I want to confine myself to a narrow ideology? I have much more to say to a much broader audience. I don't want to confine myself to a specific community. I think in that sense, he saw the bigger picture. He always had his eye on the ball, and he was able to address many audiences because he spoke their language. He spoke the language of, when he addressed a Chabad audience, he knew to address them. And when he spoke to a secular audience or a non-Jewish audience, he knew to address them, and the whole spectrum in between. And it is not that they were able to tolerate what he said. He had a strong, profound message to each of these audiences. So yes, he was a genius. He was a prolific writer, an illicit orator, but I think first and foremost, he was greater than life. He was a man of the bigger picture. He wasn't bogged down by those small things that we all concentrate on. And I think that brings me to the next point that allowed him to be this great figure, is that he shied away from machloket like from fire. He never got into any type of machloket as far as he was able to. I'm sure many of you remember the case where his own Beit Din forced him to erase a sentence from one of his books. He didn't think twice before doing so. He could have put up a fight. I'm sure he would have won. But he knew that in the greater scheme, that's not what would make the difference. If part of the world are not ready for his message, then fine, he'll erase it. As a great leader, I think he understood. A captain of a ship, I remember once before I ever sailed a boat, I rented a boat in South Africa, and there they just give you the boat. They don't ask too many questions. And I didn't realize that with a boat, you don't just yank the wheel. You have to ever so slightly turn it in order for the boat to turn. If you do it too strong, then the boat will just spin around itself and get out of orbit. And if you do, you have to be very, very gentle. The slightest turn turns the boat. And with a bigger ship, it's even more so. I think Rabbi Sacks realized that when dealing with the Jewish nation as a whole, when dealing with humanity as a whole, because as I'll speak to soon, that concerned him as well, he realized that the slightest touch already shifts the entire boat. You don't need to start getting into fights of turning it all the way or anything like that. The slightest, gentlest movement in one direction eventually turns the entire ship. He had the greatness, he had the humility and the wisdom to be able to see that great picture and not get caught by small things. He had two important messages. He had a message particularly for Jews, and he had a message for the broader world. And he spoke to both audiences. To Jews, he spoke how important it is to be Jewish, to be proud of their Judaism, to understand their Judaism. And to the greater world, he spoke about the importance of faith, faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and faith in human ability to make this world a better place. And he constantly spoke about these two things everywhere he could. But you know, in a sense, we all live in both worlds. We're all Jewish, We're all part of the greater world. And we all have opinions. We have opinions on Jewish matters, and we have opinions about world events, discussions, philosophies. But when we talk about Jewish issues, we usually speak the language of Judaism. When we talk about world issues, we try to speak in a universal language because we feel that is the appropriate language to speak about when we talk about those matters. I think Rabbi Sacks' uniqueness, well, first of all, of course, when we do it, we don't do it with the same eloquence, ability, talent that Rabbi Sacks had, but that was not it. It's not only his talent, his eloquence, his great ability. That of course, that was great. He was a genius. But it was the fact that when he spoke about world affairs, he spoke in a Jewish language. He spoke Jewishness to the world, but he spoke it in a language that anyone can understand. He was able to translate the Jewish message to a universal language. He didn't talk Jewish messages to Jews and universal messages to the world. He spoke Judaism to the world. In that sense, he was Avraham Avinu, speaking to the world about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He viewed himself as, meaning his Jewishness was not separated from his humanity. It stemmed from within his humanity and his humanity was informed by his Jewishness. In that respect, I think he reminds us of three great Gdolim that passed away in the past few years: Rav Lichtenstein, Rav Steinsaltz, Rav Rabinovitz. But I think none of them had his ability to translate great ideas into small sound bites and to translate the Jewish language into a universal language. That was his greatness. But it all came out of a great, warm Jewish heart and a strong, unwavering faith. And his faith was not, we would usually expect a great philosopher as he was to have faith as a philosopher's faith, something very uncommitting. But his faith was an emunah. When he spoke about matters of emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in Torah Mishamayim, it was in the traditional sense. To have that great emunah on one hand and to be able to communicate it and to make a difference and to always be positive. Chaval al de'avdin velo mishtakhin. We lost a tremendous leader, inspiration, ambassador of the Jewish people. But Rabbi Sacks always says, he repeated it in many times. He says, you know, you look throughout Tanakh, you don't find a word for history. When the Tanakh speaks of history, it speaks of zikaron, memory. Because history is, in a sense, his story. It's a story of someone dead, narrated by a third party. Our sense of remembering the past is not through history, but through living the past. Rav Soloveitchik used to speak about it a lot as well. We bring the past into the present while looking out into the future, combining them all. Our sense of history is not a sense of something that was, but remembering in a sense of reliving moments from the past. And in that sense, Rabbi Sacks is not with us in body, but his zikaron is with us in spirit. He became part of the great chain of the Mesorah, of Torah Shebe'al Peh, of the great Jewish message to the world that will continue throughout the generation. Tehei nishmato tzrura b'tzror hachayim. That's what I had to share with you. I thought maybe if someone wants to share some words they have, that will be very, very nice. If not, there is a very short film of Rabbi Sacks, or even if someone does want to share something, then after that, I have a very short YouTube video of Rabbi Sacks. I'm sure many of us saw it, but I think there is something powerful of seeing it together in this context. So if someone wants to share a few words, not too long, but I'm open to that. As I said, this is, at least for me, a sense of a support group.
Rav, I thought you wanted to show the film.
Yeah, I wanted to show the film. If someone doesn't want to...
I'll say a couple of words about Jonathan Sacks. I used to learn with his brother, actually, one of his brothers. And I believe from Cambridge University, they said they've never had a family, but if you add up all the marks together, they have such a high number of marks. It was unique at Cambridge across the university over the years. Whether it's true or not, I've never checked, but having met the brothers, most of them, certainly they're brilliant. And one thing you didn't say, or I'd like to emphasize, having lived in the UK all those years, Emma and I were actually friendly with his secretary as well as his office. But for English people, non-Jews and Jews, the religious authority in the UK was the chief rabbi, was Jonathan Sacks. It was quite incredible. He was head and shoulders above everybody. And that's why we've seen letters from Buckingham Palace. Certainly Margaret Thatcher considered him her rabbi, as it were. So somebody wrote to me, and I've seen it in a number of the sort of the articles, that he was the Rambam of our time. And in many ways, I think that's really, really accurate, because he was like a colossus of the learning he got at university in philosophy and the learning he got in the yeshiva world, and he managed to bring them together. And I know for many people, when you got Torah Tidbits in the last few years, the first thing you turned to was the Jonathan Sacks articles. And somebody wrote they were collecting them. I also have a ton of them, because they were just unbelievable. And frankly, the nachama of his passing, which was a shock for everybody, is that his massive writing is there for us to go to. And I certainly have made a mental note to start with this first book and work through all of them, because they were so wonderful. That's it.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think you added so much to what to who he was. Two things in regards to his books. I think we'll have to miss forever. He was planning to have, sure, all the English ones amongst us know the Hertz Chumash. He was planning to have something similar to this, he replaced this, what was known as the Singer Siddur. He modernized that. He had the dream to do that to the Hertz Chumash as well. And that unfortunately now won't happen. That could have been a tremendous addition to the Jewish bookshelf. What shocked me, I mean, in a good sense, on Motzei Shabbat and after, was the replies of my Israeli friends, because we all knew that his impact in the English-speaking world, even in America, which is quite amazing that an English rabbi would have such hashpah also in America, or would be revered by American Jewry as well. But here in Israel, so many rabbis, Rav Sherlow had an esped for him, others, many community rabbis that I'm in contact with, they all used to read his Divrei Torah on the Parasha, his books. Many of his books were translated into Hebrew. So the hashpah that he had even on Israeli religious people was quite amazing. He had a message which was important for everyone. I
would just say one thing from an American perspective. In my years there, he wasn't that known. Now, everyone knows it. I just spoke to my mother earlier this evening. She clearly has known him for many years. Lots of people have been exposed to his writings, but in the frummer world, in our circles, in America and here, at least until recently, he did not penetrate. And we all know what the attitude of the Haredi world in Britain was. And lately, I have been unbelievably pleasantly surprised to see he has gotten onto Arutz Sheva as a regular. That would not have happened a few years ago. And there are other Rabbanim, Tzionim Datiyim of the more almost extreme right, who have been exposed and who speak with his writings with appreciation. And that is a crossover that I hope continues, but that could not have happened a few years ago.
Yes, that's very interesting, and I think you're right. So if there is no one else that wants to say something, I want to share the film with you. I hope I get it right.
I am a Jew. The deepest question any of us can ask is, who am I? To answer it, we have to go deeper than where do I live or what do I do? The most fateful moment in my life came when I asked myself that question and knew the answer had to be, I am a Jew. This is why. I'm a Jew not because I believe that Judaism contains all there is of the human story. I admire other traditions and their contributions to the world. Nor am I a Jew because of anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism. What happens to me does not define who I am. Ours is a people of faith, not fate. Nor is it because I think that Jews are better than others, more intelligent, creative, generous, or successful. It's not Jews who are different, but Judaism. It's not so much what we are, but what we're called on to be. I'm a Jew because, being a child of my people, I have heard the call to add my chapter to its unfinished story. I'm a stage on its journey, a connecting link between the generations. The dreams and hopes of my ancestors live on in me, and I am the guardian of their trust, now and for the future. I'm a Jew because our ancestors were the first to see that the world is driven by a moral purpose, that reality isn't a ceaseless war of the elements to be worshipped as gods, nor history a battle in which might is right and power is to be appeased. The Judaic tradition shaped the moral civilization of the West, teaching for the first time that human life is sacred, that the individual may never be sacrificed for the mass, and that rich and poor, great and small, are all equal before God. I'm a Jew because I am the moral heir of those who stood at the foot of Mount Sinai and pledged themselves to live by these truths for all time. I'm the descendant of countless generations of ancestors who, though sorely tested and bitterly tried, remained faithful to that covenant when they might so easily have defected. I'm a Jew because of Shabbat, the world's greatest religious institution, a time in which there's no manipulation of nature or our fellow human beings, in which we come together in freedom and equality to create every week an anticipation of the Messianic age. I'm a Jew because our nation, though at times it suffered the deepest poverty, never gave up on its commitment to helping the poor, or rescuing Jews from other lands, or fighting for justice for the oppressed, and did so without self-congratulation, because it was a mitzvah, because a Jew could do no less. I'm a Jew because I cherish the Torah, knowing that God is to be found not just in natural forces, but in moral meanings, in words, texts, teachings, and commands, and because Jews, though they lacked all else, never ceased to value education as a sacred task, endowing the individual with dignity and depth. I'm a Jew because of our people's passionate faith in freedom, holding that each of us is a moral agent, and that in this lies our unique dignity as human beings. And because Judaism never left its ideals at the level of lofty aspirations, but instead translated them into deeds which we call mitzvot, and a way which we call the halacha, and thus brought heaven down to earth. I am proud, simply, to be a Jew. I'm proud to be part of a people who, though scarred and traumatized, never lost their humor or their faith, their ability to laugh at present troubles and still believe in ultimate redemption, who saw human history as a journey and never stopped traveling and searching. I'm proud to be part of an age in which my people, ravaged by the worst crime ever to be committed against a people, responded by reviving a land, recovering their sovereignty, rescuing in defending themselves in war. I'm proud that our ancestors refused to be satisfied with premature consolations, and in answer to the question, has the Messiah come? Always answered, not yet. I'm proud to belong to the people Israel, whose name means one who wrestles with God and with man and prevails. For though we have loved humanity, we have never stopped wrestling with it, challenging the idols of every age. And though we have loved God with an everlasting love, we've never stopped wrestling with him, nor he with us. I admire other civilizations and traditions and believe each has brought something special into the world. Aval zeh shalanu. But this is ours. This is my people, my heritage, my faith. In our uniqueness lies our universality. Through being what we alone are, we give to humanity what only we can give. This then is our story, our gift to the next generation. I received it from my parents and they from theirs across great expanses of space and time. There's nothing quite like it. It changed and still challenges the moral imagination of humankind. I want to say to Jews around the world, take it, cherish it, learn to understand and to love it. Carry it and it will carry you. And may you, in turn, pass it on to future generations. For you are a member of an eternal people, a letter in their scroll. Let their eternity live on in you.
Thank you very much for being here, and may he be a blessing for us. Thank you.
Shkoach very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Very moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.